Welcome back. Eternal Dragon here, friends, and I've got a brand new build for you for Chaos 100. We're calling it Ice in the Veins. Anyway, you gotta check this thing out. It is a Brrzerker Stabbo, and we are just killing it with this thing. But before we hit the build, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and then I'll take you through this thing.
Prepare to die. Welcome to a whole new world. Your planet is now under Mid-Ranger's control. Humanity will be exterminated. If you hear this message, do not try to leave. Do not try to fight. Do not try to resist. You will be eliminated. You will be eliminated. Prepare to die.
That was pretty awesome. I have had a ton of fun playing this build so far. Let me take you through it. First of all, we have two main guns for the build. You can swap between the two of them, just sort of when it seems like you need which one at any given time. This one here, the Last Rites, is in fact a quest reward, and it is a little bit better for mobbing in some cases. And then we do have a times 18 Saga. Now this gun is actually the same frame as the Last Rites. The major difference between the Last Rites is going to ricochet its shots around for you, whereas this one here doesn't ricochet the shots, but you have the times 18 pellets on it, so you have a much higher chance to be proccing your Executioner's blades. So, especially when you are in From the Shadows, you're going to be wanting to use this one, as the times 18 with the From the Shadows will proc just an absolutely crazy amount of Executioner's blades for you, and that is a huge thing that you want to do on the build. It is going to be setting off all of your melee hits, and then those turn into insane status damage. That's right, so let's take a look here at what else we've got. This is primarily a base game build, but you can, of course, if you do have a PLC, go ahead and get yourself a Delusion, and this will increase your damage quite a bit, just so you can soak an enemy first, and then of course your ice damage is going to be doing a bunch of extra damage because of the soaked effect that you can see right there. Now, it's actually about 50% extra damage. It says like 150 if you ever see the soaked stats, but it does actually about 50% more damage overall. So you don't actually need this one, but if you go ahead, you get the PLCs, you can grab this. Everything else on the build is in the base game. Now, this gun here, you don't really need to worry, you just have this on the build in case you happen to run into something that is ice immune. It is good to have something else that you can use for the soaked effect, and this particular weapon is absolutely fantastic. It will stack up with your Wailing Banshee as well. You see the saw blades there dealing increased damage for each saw blade stuck in the target. You get those stacked up, come in and swing the big Wailing Banshee, hit for a crazy echo, and you'll be able to take care of anything that has an ice immunity, no problem. So these are your two main guns though. You see we've got this one enchanted on spellcast, increased damage 15%. Now we are going to be triggering that constantly. So you have the ability to have that up all the time with this build. That extra 15% damage, always triggered. And then here we have the action skill start. So, you know, when you go to From the Shadows, you get that for 20 seconds. You have a really good amount of uptime on that enchantment on this build as well, as your action skill comes back fairly quickly. You will lose this one every so often for a little bit, but this one, like I said, essentially has infinite uptime with the way the build works. Now, if you've switched over to here after getting a gun kill, 20% melee damage, 30% movement speed, that is, of course, going to increase the damage that you are doing with your Executioner's Blades, as well as the shots ricochet around and trigger them, as that extra melee damage is triggering it goes onto the trigger for the Executioner's Blades. And, of course, extra movement speed. Who doesn't want that? So, just whichever you feel like you really need. Tons of extra damage here, or you see it buffing up the melee here and just ricocheting around. This is your debuffer here, and this is your in case things are immune to ice. Now we have a Wailing Banshee here, and we have a really high damage one, 2,726 damage. Now that's important too. As you see over here, the Executioner's Blade is in fact taking 150% of our melee weapon damage. So we want that to have the biggest number possible. Now, we are grabbing melee damage rings here. This one, well in a dungeon, effects are increased, but we've got the melee damage, 26.3%, with additional melee critical hit damage there. And we do have a Shark Lesson ring. This one is, again, another quest reward as well. And this one, 25% melee damage with the melee critical hit damage roll and action skill cooldown rate. But what we're really looking for is that 15% bonus melee damage rotating between elements, because not only is that going to help us by giving us just a random element at any given time, that will actually also help us trigger our Contagion, which is very important for increasing our damage up here with Exploit the Weakness. And of course, Potent Poisons, increasing the damage of our status effects overall. So we're going to finish up with the gear here. We do have a bad egg. Whenever your armor gets broken here, you're going to get even more movement speed and melee damage again. Stacks up super duper well with this enchantment. And that extra melee damage and bonus dark magic damage will in fact go back and apply onto the Executioner's Blade yet again. So fantastic shield for what we're going to be doing, as you can occasionally get your shield broken, but you have a ton of sustain on this build, so it's okay if your shield goes down, your life should be alright. We do have a Warped Paradigm of Crushing Mayhem. That is our main armor for the build. We're not really going to swap to anything else that you see in the gear, because this is just the best. We have melee, area, all damage on this, but the primary thing we're looking for is that 3 out of 3, so that over here in the skills, we can get 6 out of 3 on Icebreaker. This is a crazy, crazy strong skill, especially when you combo it over here with Executioner's Blade, as these are melee damage, and they can trigger your Icebreaker. We are using an Empowering Sigil here. On action skill start, you see we've got the status effect chance and damage increased by 20% for 10 seconds. So that is just fantastic for us. When we go into From the Shadows, you amp your status effect damage to a point where it's just pretty much crazy. It'll take down anything in the game. Now, this spell itself already has some of the best status effect damage in the game, and so it does get boosted really, really well with this enchantment. And at first you don't see the status effect damage until you actually trigger it, and you'll notice that as well as protecting you, this gives you Novas. So this boops all sorts of crazy Nova ice damage around you. You'll see how quickly it is going to come back. And on top of it, this spell actually has the ability to freeze enemies solid with these Novas, even at 100% health. You are going to love this thing. Now, we finally, in the amulet slot, have a sacrificial skeep, and that is so that if you get hit too hard, you get a skeep, he comes out, he'll fill up your life a few times. If you get knocked down, you can kill him. And you'll do see we have a Nova on this shield, so if you get really, really hard, your shield breaks, and within a split second you go down to some status effect damage, well, that skeep's gonna pop out, get hit by the Nova here, and you'll be right back on your feet. So, over to the skills. We'll be mainly using the skill from the shadows, primarily. There's other things that you can do, but I mean, you're gonna find that this is what you want to really be using to amp up all of your chances to get, what is it? Executioner's Blade. So, we're gonna go 3 out of 3 into haste to increase our movement and melee attack speed, and then 5 out of 5 here into potent poisons to increase our status effect damage and our status effect duration. You really want to bleed people out. 3 out of 3 here to increase our damage using exploit the weakness, damage increase 6%, but that is per type of status effect, and with contagion here, we can actually get all of the different types of status effects going on an enemy, so this will really dramatically increase your damage. Over here, 3 out of 3 in follow-up, so that whenever we're shooting our gun, our next melee attack deals increased damage. And then we've got Shadow Step here, again a kill skill. Our next melee attack is a guaranteed critical hit for a short duration. So we are going to be having a whole bunch of extra critical hits here for Executioner's Blade anytime we get a kill. Now 2 out of 5 here into Sneak Attack, I love that extra critical hit damage. And the 3 out of 3 into Contagion so that we have that extra spread chance and a new status effect chance of 50% damage of the previous type, but really what we're looking for is the multiple types. We want them to spread around, get onto all the other enemy types, so that we are having exploit the weakness triggered every time, all the time, multiple times. Now down here, we have 1,000 Cuts, another one of my absolutely favorite skills. This thing is going to increase our damage just by you getting critical hits, and look at that, melee critical hits give additional stacks. So this being melee damage is going to be triggering a bunch of the different skills here on the Stabbomancer tree. The last one being Alchemical Agent, melee critical hits, you see it. They apply a random status effect, Contagion, exploit the weakness, potent poisons, ice in the veins. Over here we've got Enrage getting triggered when we hit our action skill over here from the shadows. That gives us the ice in the veins. We are increasing the frost damage here with just 2 because we want 5 into savagery, and then also 5 out of 5 in the old ways so that when you get up close to people you've got the additional damage reduction and additional 30% damage. Now, like I said, we got 6 out of 3 here with the Icebreaker so that we can shatter whatever we freeze. And then we've got the 1 out of 1 in Armor Defense, giving us additional Ward Reserve over into max health, up to 150% of the reserved ward, so you've got a huge life bar. Smaller shield, easier to get it broken, and get that additional melee damage out of the bad egg. And then we've spec'd 1 point here into Blood Frenzy, just so that we are always getting life regen. And then 1 point up here into Unyielding, so again, we are always getting life regen. That's just all the time. And this one on Kill Skill. And then I'll just show that right now real quick, what that looks like in combat. Okay, so now you've seen how that looks in combat too. So, taking a look at our hero points, we've got 44 up here into the critical damage. Dropped, I think, a couple points here into dexterity, pumped up our status damage as far as possible. Gave us that nice spell cooldown so that we have all of that uptime with our Empowering Sigil. And then drop the rest over here into Attunement, 30 out of 42, so that we have the Faster from the Shadows cooldown too. Over here in the myth rank, you see we are at 1138, but we have not been spending points for a while. Okay, friends, so that is it for the build Ice in the Veins, a brand new build for CH100, my first Brrzerker Stabbomancer. I hope you like it. Save file will, of course, be over there on the Discord, and I play live on Twitch like 4 or 5 days a week. We're trying to get the best possible schedule set right now. We're still going sometimes during the day, sometimes late at night, so hope we see you over there. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and until the next time, friends, happy gaming!
Come flexing with style and mad skills, like my name was Eternal Dragons, gameplay and builds. So come get your fill, cause you paying the bill. The conflict's critical, situation real. I'm a pop, I'm let it rock, those mark, old school 360 like an Xbox, make it hot. What you got, gonna get it go right? I'ma watch my watch as I watch you flop. Slowing down my lyrics for